if you got a problem with that. All right, I am recording. I should be recording here. All right, we are period six, advanced algebra with financial applications. It is marking period for May 18th. So we're going to use this assignment right here. It's independent living, section 1. And I've already responded from yesterday. So I'm going to edit my response. I'm going to click edit my response since I've already edited the response since yesterday. And we've got 4 learning targets. We'll learn target number 1, I can calculate the affordability of monthly rent. Learning target number 2, I can determine the relationship between square footage and monthly rent. That's what we're doing today. And learning target number 3, I can determine the lease signing costs. And number 4, I can calculate moving expenses. I'm going to click on that little button just to get rid of that little sign. We talked about the vocabulary yesterday. We already put our names in. We already got our learning targets in. If you don't have these already, you can go ahead and do that. Go ahead and select those learning targets. Little control, a little right click, copy, right click, paste. One of those. And we talked about how rent has increased as a percentage of income since 1950s. So, if somebody who is, grew up in the 1950s, if they're trying to tell you that, hey, rent's not that bad, it's not that expensive to get an apartment, it's easy, it's very affordable. You say, okay, well, maybe for you back in 1950 or 1960, but since then, rent has gone up quite a bit. All right, it's a significantly higher percentage of income than it used to be. Warm-ups, we already did those. We already read the text wall. We already talked about example 1. What we were doing example 1, well, we had a person who made $61,992 per year, and we knew that they paid 25% of their gross monthly income in federal and state taxes. We wanted to find out how much they can afford in rent and how much the money they'll have after they pay their taxes and their rent. Well, to do that, we took the yearly, we divided it by 12 to find their monthly, right? This is all in the other previous video. This is their monthly income, gross, unadjusted, before taxes or anything are taken out. We said that, okay, we're going to use an estimated rent of 28%. That's pretty that if your rent is more than 28%, you should think about getting a cheaper apartment or getting a roommate or something. So we took the 28%, we converted it into a decimal out of 1. 5,166 times 0.28 is 1,446 and 48 cents. Then we did the same thing with taxes, right? This is their monthly income, $5,166. They paid 25% in federal and state taxes. We converted that into a decimal out of 1 by moving that decimal place over 2 places. Then we multiplied by that percentage expressed as a decimal out of 1 by their monthly income. We found out they pay $1,291.50 in taxes. And then find out what they have left over for the rest of the month. We took their monthly income. We subtracted how much they can afford for an apartment. Then again, we subtracted how much they're going to pay in taxes. And now we have a round figure of what they have left over each month to pay for everything else, like food, utilities, a cell phone plan, an internet connection, a Netflix account. All those other things in life have got to come out of this person's $2,430 per month. Why might we do it that way? Why might we calculate the monthly income, take out taxes and rent? It's because taxes and rent are such an important piece of daily living for most people, right? If you don't have a place to stay, then a lot of other things don't matter. You don't really need an internet connection if you don't have a place to stay. This is kind of really important. You do not want to get evicted. You want to have a place to sleep every night. So that rent is kind of like one of those non-negotiable items. You need to pay that rent in order to have a roof above your head and take care of yourself. And then taxes. Taxes are one of those other non-negotiable things. If you don't pay your taxes, you go in front of a courtroom and they make you pay them anyway, and you potentially can get prison time if you try to avoid it too much, right? So you don't want any of that nonsense. So you pay your rent, you pay your taxes, and life is a little bit easier. Okay, let's see. Then we went over Genesis. We went over those problems. You were supposed to do these 2 problems yesterday on your own. Today, we are going to be doing example 2. This little thing here, I don't even know if we really need to talk about this too much. Back in the day, apartments were advertised in these things called newspapers. And newspapers were printed on a thing called paper. Remember paper? Remember before COVID when there was paper? And newspapers used to charge landlords like money, a certain amount of like a penny per word or per letter. So they had to use as few letters as possible. So they started abbreviating all these different things. So here's some examples of things they abbreviated. Instead of saying bathroom, they'd be like, it has one BA or one BTH. Instead of two bedrooms, it would say two BRs. Dishwasher would be abbreviated this way. Eating kitchen would be that way. Studio would be STU. They had all these abbreviations. That's not so much the case anymore because with the internet, you don't get charged per letter. Thank goodness, right? That would make the internet a little bit different. All right. Here's the elevator welcoming you to your new apartment. And here's what we're doing today. This is example 2. I'm going to explain how to explain example 2, explain how they got through this using the calculator, and then you're going to use this equation to answer some questions. I'm going to walk you through this question right here, and then all we have to do for today is for you to do these 2 questions, and we're out of here. All right, they're each 10 points each, so make sure you get them done. And away we go. Example 2. Rufus and Maria have both been offered new jobs in a different city. A real estate broker sent them listings of apartments in their desired location, showing the square footage in each apartment. Use linear regression analysis to determine if there is a correlation between the square footage of the rental property and the amount charged for monthly rent. What is the linear regression equation? And interpret the correlation coefficient. All right, here is how to do a problem like this. This is called a table. In math, we call this a table. All right, this table describes various apartments. So that, for instance, there's this one teeny tiny apartment with just 664 square feet, and it costs $995 per month in terms of rent. Over here, we have an apartment that's 976 square feet. That's a little bit better. And then it costs $1,295 per month in rent. And then on the top end, we have an apartment with a fairly spacious 1,697 square feet, and the monthly rent is $1,995 per month. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this data into our calculator, and using that, we're going to be able to create a stat plot, which is all these little dots on our calculator. We've done these before, but I'm going to show you how to do it, just so you remember. Once we have created the stat plot, we're going to run a linear regression using, we're going to go to stat calc and run a linear regression. And that's going to give us this equation right here. And the equation can go into y equals, which will give us this line right here. And then we'll get the correlation coefficient to pop up, and we'll interpret that. All right. Here's how you begin. And this is one of the reasons why I'm getting a video today, because there's a lot of steps to this. All right. First, I'm going to clear out my calculator because actually I already have all the data in here already. I want to clear all that out. Second, plus 712. In order to do these kind of questions on your own, you are going to need a graphing calculator. So make sure you go to Rock Connect and get the graphing calculator there on Rock Connect. If you go to Rock Connect and sign in, there should be a graphing calculator icon somewhere, which will install a graphing calculator on your Chromebook. And you will definitely need it if you're just given the table and not any of this stuff here, you'll need the graphing calculator to do this. All right, here I go. I need to put this first step. First steps first, I need to put this data from this table in my calculator. Here's how I'm going to do that. This little button here, this little magic button here is the stat button. It stands for statistics. I'm going to click on the stat button. Click. All right. I would like to edit some lists, and fortunately edit is already highlighted here. So all I got to do press now is click on enter. Click. All right, now I have this menu right here. I got list 1, L1, list 2, L2, list 3, and so on. I can begin entering my data for square feet in list 1. And you want to be careful on how you do this. You want to make sure your X values go in list 1 and your Y values go in list 2. Saves you a headache later. So list 1, my first number is 664. I type the number in, I press enter. Right? It's just, and if you are have a calculator available to you, I would recommend that you just take this calculator out right now and on your Chromebook, you do the same thing I'm doing, because even though there's no question that you need to solve for this, like you don't need to do it for today, by actually having done it once, you'll refresh your memory on how to do this and you'll save yourself a headache later. All right. So 787, enter. Just to remind you how I got here, I press stat and enter to get into this list menu. Stat and enter got me here. And now I'm entering the data, I recommend taking it kind of slow, because when you try to rush, that's when a mistake gets made and it throws everything off. Oop, just like that. All right, that was my last piece of data for my list. I got 1,697 right over here. Now I'm going to start entering the data in for monthly rent. All right, to do that, I'm going to press the right arrow key to go over to list 2, and I'm going to start typing in the monthly rent. This 995, enter. 1,045, enter. 1,095, enter. 1,205, enter. 1,000. Just keep going like that. Every so often, I recommend just stopping and just checking your work. For instance, I just stopped at 1,325. I want to make sure that that's associated with the number 993. And yes, in my calculator, I can see these two things are associated. So I'm still on the right track. Sometimes I get going, I'll make one little mistake, and then I start compounding the mistake over and over again without realizing it. So it's good to stop every now and again, and just to make sure that your numbers are getting associated correctly. Like I'm at 1,150, where the apartment monthly rent is 1,595, and that's where I'm at on my calculator. So every now and again, just stop and check to make sure that all your numbers are being associated together, because these two numbers each represent a particular apartment. So you can't mix and match the numbers. The X and the Y values here are associated with each other. All right, great. I've got all my data in. Another good thing to do is make sure that, when you got all the data in, is that you stopped both at the same places, right? If you've got one more piece of data on one side of a list than you do the other, your calculator is not going to be able to run the regression, because it needs a number in list 1. For every number in list 1, there needs to be a number in list 2. Otherwise, the calculator will have a conniption fit. All right, so you do need to make sure that you have the same number of numbers in both of your lists. You can't have like an extra number floating around somewhere. If there's an extra number floating around somewhere, there was probably an error got typed in there somewhere. Okay. From here, I would like my calculator to do this little stat plotty thingy. All right, so that I can see just kind of like what the shape of the function would be. This is for if I didn't know that already it was going to be linear. All right, so I'm going to turn on my stat plot. Here's how I'm going to do that. Notice in blue here, it says stat plot above the y equals button. Well, that means if I press the second blue button and then press y equals, it'll take me to the stat plot menu. All right. From the stat plot menu, I can see that plot 1 is off. Well, I would like to turn it on. Here's how I can do that. I can press enter to go into plot 1 menu, and I press, and on is already being highlighted. So if I just press enter once more, the plot 1 will be turned on. So to show that again, second stat plot, enter, enter. Turns on my stat plot for number 1. All right. Once I have my stat plot number 1 on, I can zoom to the stat plot. So I'm going to press the zoom button. Right? The zoom button will open up a special zoom window that will give me a good window on these dots. Choose zoom stat. It's option number 9. All right, so you press the down arrow key till you get to option number 9 and press enter, or you can just press the 9 key. And there it is. There is my lovely stat plot on my calculator. And I can look at that and say, what function would be the best model for this particular data? And I'm kind of seeing it looks like this will be a line, right? This doesn't look curved or like a quadratic or an exponential or anything. This looks like a line. So I'm going to model it with a line. And here's how I go ahead and do that. I'm going to press the stat button once again. Pressing stat brings me back here. I'm not going to edit the list this time. This time I want to calculate a linear regression. So I need to move this over to the calculate menu. To do that, I press the right arrow key. All right, here's the calculate menu. I got lots of different options. The option I want is lin-reg. I want to do a linear regression. Lin-reg, linear regression. I press enter like 6 times here. Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. And there I go. It gave me everything I needed for the linear regression. And look here on your Google form. We already got that calculator output there. It says lin-reg, where y equals a times x plus b. So it's giving me the basic formula for how to set up an equation, y equals a times x plus b, and then it's telling me what a equals, and it's telling me what b equals. So I can begin to write this equation out. If I'm rounding to the nearest hundredths, like it says in the problem, I can round, let's see, a is 0.906, 6 is in the thousands place, the zeros in the hundredths place. If I round to the nearest hundredths, I look at the thousands place, I see that it's a number of the 5 or greater, which means I have to round the 0 up to a 1, 0.91. So I would write this out as y equals 0.91 times x. X is a variable, that's very important. You need that x in there. And then plus, I would replace the b with 403.09, right? That's 7 in the thousands place, tells me to round up my hundreds place up 1, so it becomes 403.09, and then we have the equation. Once we have the equation, we can do great things, like we could press the y equals button, right? Pressing the y equals button, I get this menu right here. I can type this equation of the line in here, 0.91 x. Again, if you can follow along on your calculator, that would be good for you. Plus 403.09. All right, I have the equation in my y equals. If I go to zoom stat again, I press zoom, go down to the stat menu, enter. Oh, there we go. There is, did I stop it? Oh, there we go. There is my line. My line goes through all my stat plots just like it is here on the Google form. Okay, great, wonderful things are happening. So we already have the equation. The only thing we need next is the correlation coefficient. And to turn on the correlation coefficient, I'm going to need to turn on stat diagnostics. And here's how I go ahead and do that. Press the mode button on your calculator. Mode. It's the button to the right of the blue second button. If I go up after pressing mode, I can see stat diagnostics is like the second or third thing from the bottom. I go over to stat diagnostics. I see it's currently on off. I press the right arrow key to turn it on and then press enter. All right, so to show that again, mode, up arrow key, up, right arrow key, enter. And then that turns stat diagnostics on. Once that's on, I get my R value when I go back and do that regression. Again, to do the regression again, and the reason why I did this way is to show you how to do the regression twice. Stat, I want to move over to the calc menu, go down to lin-reg, linear regression, enter 6 times, once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. There I have it. It's all this part is the same. Y equals a times x plus b, where it tells me what a is, it tells me what b is. This is what's new. We're going to ignore r squared for a minute. We're just going to look at the r value, and it's 0.96. And here's how to interpret any r value. Ready? Okay, r values. An r value of 0 means there's no correlation. An r value of 0 would mean that x and y are completely scattered, and that if you knew what x was, you'd have no idea what y is. There's just no correlation whatsoever between these two numbers. And r values can be positive or negative, and then go up to +1 or as low as -1. If a correlation value is negative, it means that as x increases, y is decreasing. If the r value is positive, it means that you have a positive line. That means as x increases, y is also increasing. All right. So an r value of 1 is like a perfect positive correlation. An r value of -1 is a perfect negative correlation. So 1 is perfect. It means every single dot is exactly mathematically on the line that we could draw. An r value of, say, 0.5 is fairly moderate, right? It means that if you knew what X was, you could kind of maybe sort of tell within a certain given amount what the Y might be. You could get a general ballpark. If the R value is something like 0.25, yeesh, that's not very, that doesn't predict, that's not very predictive at all. It's very weak. An R value of 0.75, now you're getting into where like things are strong, right? 0.7 an R value of 0.75 or greater, it tells you that if you know what X is, you can pretty much guess within a certain amount of what Y is going to do. And then with an R value of like 0.9 or above, that's very strong. That means if you know X, you can definitely predict Y with a high degree of confidence. All right, so that's what's going on here. We have a R value of 0.96. That is very nearly 1. That means that our dots line up very nearly, all line up exactly on our line. And we can see that right here. All the dots line up on the line except for these 4, which seem to be doing something kind of funky. And that's the whole thing. We have the equation, right? We have the correlation coefficient. We have interpreted it. We are done with example 2. That's the whole deal. For the next question, I'm going to show you how to do this question. You're going to do the next 2 on your own, and you're done for the day. All right. Whew. Let me get rid of that. Based on the equation, y equals 0.91 times x plus 403.09, what is a good estimate for the amount of monthly rent charged for an 880 square foot apartment rounded to the nearest hundredth? All right, here's how you do this. Type out the equation that you've got, right? We've got the equation. This equation, this tells us everything we need to know about this line. This equation defines the line. That's exactly what it is. This function notation defines the line. All right. Now I just need to figure out, I have one piece of this line. I know that the apartment is 880 square feet. They want to know what's the amount of rent charged. They want to know how much will it cost to rent an apartment that's 880 square feet. In order to solve this problem, I'm going to have to go back to my table and say, wait a minute, is my square feet my X value or my Y value? Can anybody in the chat help me out? Is square feet our X or our Y? Do you remember that one? Excellent. Exactly. So the kind of like what we try to think of this as like the X value is the thing that's determining what happens with the Y value. So in this case, it's as an apartment increases in square feet, the money is increasing, right? So the X value is usually that thing you put into L1. It's that first thing you're entering in your table. This is usually your X value. And then this is what's being affected by your X value. This is your Y value over here. Okay. So now that we know that square footage is the X value, we can just replace X in our equation with our number, 880 square feet. And I can just begin to solve for this equation. Oop, I made my calculator go away already. That was premature. All right. Here I go. 0.091. I want to find out what the Y value is when the square footage is 880. 0.091 times 880, which stands in for X in this case. That's my X value, plus 403.09 tells me that this apartment should rent for $483. I feel like I did something wrong here. Everything looks okay though. What did I do wrong? Ah, I see. See how I said I did it should be 0.91 and I did 0.091. So that's always a good thing to do. If your answer doesn't make sense, like how could that 880 square feet be only $400 a month? My 664 square foot apartment was costing me $995. I knew immediately, I'm like, there's got to be something wrong here. I must have pushed a button wrong. Let me try this again. 0.91 times 880. Drum roll, please. All right, here we go. $1,203.89. So that's what this apartment should cost. $1,203.89. That's what we could expect from an apartment with a square footage of 880 square feet. That's kind of how to do these. For this problem here, you're going to figure out the amount that a 550 square foot apartment will cost in terms of monthly rent. All right, that's an X value. You'll stick that in for X and solve for Y. Pretty easy. In the next one, I'm giving you how much the rent is. You tell me the approximate square footage based on that amount of rent. So you're solving this number here is going to go in for Y, and you're going to solve for X. And that's it. That's all we have for today. Let me stop my sharing. Once you get these two questions done, wish us a happy Tuesday.